And a good morning to y'all. What's happening? What is happening? It's the 4th of July. That's what's happening. Happy Independence Day to y'all. If you're in the US or if you're an expat living elsewhere, an American expat. What happened this week? Put out the video for the Discovery delay. That was fun. I love that thing. Pretty great delay pedal. And Kevin did a beautiful job on it. So we could talk about that if you want to. What else? I'm still working on a video right now, actually, it's actually kind of a similar sort of theme. It's a programmable, there it is. It's from RJM. It's a programmable overdrive. So it's all analog, but it's got presets. And it'll do kind of anything from clean boost through to tube screamer, through to clonish kind of stuff, through to kind of ampy overdrive. I wouldn't say it's a distortion. It's on the warm soft clipping side always, but it does do kind of, there's a MOSFET circuit in there. There's like, kind of gets into ampy territory. So that's fun too. That'll be out next week. I don't know. That's all I got. What are you guys talking about? Let's see. Who here knows how to work on guitar electronics? As my knees hurt. There must be a few people, I'm sure. And let's see here. She's having some issues with pickups and stuff and no output out of a guitar. Who can help him? This fella. It's Brett. I better put on my glasses. I can't see. Just how it is these days. I want an all-in-one modulation pedal for effects that I don't use that often. Should I be looking at anything besides the H9, MD200, Mobius, or M5? I think you kind of got it covered there. I used Mobius, and I love the Mobius. Actually, still, I have no desire to switch to anything else for that. The the Boss is cool too. The H9 is cool. I use some of the modulations, and actually, I love the Leslie in the rotating speaker stuff in the H9 is awesome. I would say I probably prefer the chorus and maybe the vibrato and the flanger in the Mobius. It sounds really good to me. Like so good and warm and kind of relatively authentically analog. And actually I even like the Univibe in the Mobius. And it's got a good, basically has the Lex style rotary. So it covers all the bases for me. Yeah. But there's the other boxes you mentioned too, the Boss and the Line 6. And so there's a super chat up there. It's T-Top. He says, any experience with the Friedman Mic Nomo? A little bit. Back when Dave was developing that, he actually asked me to kind of listen to it and offer feedback and stuff. So I remember trying it and saying, oh, I think you should filter a little bit of this out or low end or something. And I think he might have taken a couple, like a recommendation or two of mine. So I do remember trying it back then. And it's a good analog, cab sim in the vein of, the, I guess, Redbox or Palmer or, the Sir Ace. There's these devices that do these things, and it's similar to that, where it's got a nice greenback-like curve to it, I would say. Yeah. Let's see. The thing about I'll just say one more thing about that. The thing about the analog speaker simulators, they tend to have there's always a direct quality to them. You know what I mean? Like almost like you're using a DI box on guitar and plug direct in. There's a flatness to the sound, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of a very in your face thing where there's not like an error around the sound or anything like that. Obviously, right? So that's the thing. But that can sound really good in some contexts. And my favorite of all of them that I've heard is the Ace, actually. And Kevin, speaking of Kevin, he designed that as well. And I did help with that a little more. He had one version of it, and I wasn't as crazy about it. And then I said, you should listen to the couple different impulse responses. I think are really good. And then he listened, and he actually went and said, "Okay, I see what you're saying." And then he went, I think, and started using IRs to reference from, and tuning in the curve to try and match IRs as close as he could using analog components, because you could visually see what the IR is doing, you know, with how it graphs out or whatever. And he got as close as he could. And then, like, when I went and listened, it was like, yes, now that sounds really, really good. Just like that. It's a slightly flatter version, you know, in your face version of what the IR does, which has a little bit more of a, like an air around it or something. You guys know what I'm talking about if you've used IRs and stuff, you know. But anyways, the Ace is really terrific for that, I think. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. We've got Prince Edward Island in the house. That's cool. Catalina Island. Peter's out in Catalina. Do you live out there or something, or you're just vacationing? You know, I've never been to Catalina Island. That's a problem. Like the fact I've been in LA as long as I have, and I've never been to Catalina. It's so dumb. I got to get out there, check it out. Seems like it would be a fun, like 36-hour getaway or something. Yeah. What else we got here? Another super chat up there. Somebody in Canada. Or did I just miss the one in Canada? I don't know. So mystery stuff going on here with the super chat. Let's see here. Well, David A is up there, and he says, any suggestions for a P90 upgrade to a Yamaha RevStar? For what's out there now, you know, I'm not a P90 expert, I will say, but it seems like it'd be hard to go wrong with maybe a Fralin, or, you know, Lawlers are pretty highly regarded, I think. And then you've of course got all the options with. I would probably go with one of those. I would probably go with a Fralin, to be honest. I don't think you could go wrong if you picked one of his pickups. I think he's got P90s. There's another super chat here from Arthur. Thank you for the super chat. And that's Quilter Labs sent me their new Super Block UK, and it's so killer. I've been wanting to hear that thing, actually, try it out. I ran out of the IR out and into a radar loaded with one installation all mic speakers you recommend. Wow, it's a killer monster. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I've tried a few of the older Quilters, and there was things I liked about them, and then there was things that I was like, I don't know. But I get the appeal, but I haven't tried that. The UK one in particular would be obviously something I would be, you know, probably interested in and up my alley. So I do want to give that a lesson one of these days. So that's cool. That so when you say that you ran out of the IR out and into a radar loaded with, but there's no IR hosted in the thing, right? It doesn't do IR hosting. Has it got analog speaker simulation built in, and then you can you could turn that off, or maybe take a direct out that doesn't have a filtered output and then add in the computer, I'm guessing. Something like that. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I want to check that out. Sean, looking at pairing a JMP with the SLO 100 for heavy rock rig. Are there specific mods between the Jose variants you've played? To complement the SLO. Well, there is differences with the Jose mods. There's a number of different mods. First of all, the most basic one would be, you know, just that he put a tube gain boost in front, and he did that. Now just right there, there's a few different things that he would do sometimes that change the sound of that tube in front. Whether sometimes he would tie both sides of the tube together. I don't know if it's in parallel or in series, but it would make sense. It would be in series if it would add more gain. But sometimes he would tie them together and it would be gainier, like a gainier boost in front. And I think Dave Friedman would tell you that he doesn't actually like that version. That the one side of the tube in front is enough, in his opinion. And maybe that was the more common thing that you would see that he would do. I think. But anyways, then there's certain things he would do to maybe roll off high end on that tube a little bit, and to cut lows too, and a couple different values to kind of tune the tone of that tube. Whether he would leave it a little fuller or lean it out a little bit more, which would make for a more aggressive, tighter boost into the front end of the rest of the amp. So that's the one, there's a couple different variations on just that gain boost. Then you've got the master volume that he would add, and whether he would put it pre-EQ or post-EQ, which I went over pretty extensively in that Steve Vai amp video, so you can listen to the difference, because it does sound different. The master in front of the EQ is a little more scooped sounding. I tend to prefer it the other way, post-EQ master. And then the Zener limiting thing was the other thing he would do sometimes, which would just give a little bit more sort of sizzle and drive to the sound, and sounds a little more metal, basically. And I tend to like that off. It's cool. It's a cool sound for sometimes, like, especially, I could, like, I think Hetfield had one. I could see him using that, it has that, for lack of a better, if you wanted to sound more Metallica, I would think, it would be, it had a bit more of a metal kind of limited, compressed, distorted sound, whereas just the gain boost on in front with the post EQ is sort of, to me, the typical, like, Jose, just gainier 80s Marshall kind of thing. So, but Dave Friedman's a good guy to consult for all that, for sure. Thanks D Lowe's as well for doing the super chat there. Yeah, you could ask Dave Friedman, and he would tell you kind of, probably, if you told him what you were going for, he would probably be able to tell you better, like, exactly what you should get mod wise and what direction to go if you're thinking of having an amp done with those mods, because the mods are pretty well known now by most of the guys, probably. That, I mean, Dave's seen a million of them, so he's a really good guy to go to for some variation on those mods. Anyways, Doug says, what is your opinion on active pickups? Bunch of super chats here. Thanks, guys. My opinion is, jury's still out, you're saying. Yeah, I wonder how you feel about them, because I'm actually getting a guitar done right now with EMGs, just to have and try. And it's going to have, actually, this kind of the Steve Lukather set. I saw Steve Lukather actually yesterday at the little fourth gathering. I stopped by for a minute. And he's a great guy. Always good to see him. But anyways, I got his set from EMG, which I don't even know if he really uses that much anymore, because I know he's got, I think signature DiMarzio's, doesn't he now, in his guitar. But anyways, it's all in an attempt to get a little bit lower noise out of at least a guitar or two in my studio here. So, and then the other thing I'm messing with is some of the Fluence pickups, which sounded pretty cool. I have a set in a guitar, the Fishman pickups, but they weren't quite as quiet as what I had hoped for. It was more like a fairly quiet version of any of the other guitars I have here. So, like, and then the reason that I wanted to try the Fluence is because I did try a guitar that had them in. They were the modern set, this other guitar that I tried, with the completely enclosed coils, right? Like they look like, they have a little design on the top, but they look more like an EMG. Those were dead silent in here. And my bass is dead silent in here, which is I've got a Warwick bass, a Streamer, and it's so quiet. It's no, I'm talking about, the EMI issue I have in here with the noise getting in the pickups from, coming in from the air. So anyways, so I've been messing with that a little bit. Now the Fishmans that I tried, the open coil set that I tried, the ones I said were ever so slightly noisier, sound cool in the vintage mode. There's two different modes. And I really liked the vintage mode. You can do a push-pull, and you get two different, almost like a PAF output and then a hot output. The hot output sounded like really different and quite hot to me, and maybe too much to me. But the vintage sound sounded pretty cool and usable and stuff. And so, but they just weren't as quiet as I would like. So now I'm getting some of the modern set that has the completely enclosed coils. It's more about the noise than it is the tone that I want one guitar that's dead silent for when I want to do like a hyper compressed clean sound or something, and I'm using a lot of compression, it brings up the noise floor, or really gainy solos or things like that, John Sir's one comment about active pickups is that he doesn't think they sound good into a, generally speaking, for that classic sound that we love or whatever, into a Marshall, like a Plexi. He thinks they sound weird. And like maybe it's just too clinical or something. But I have yet to experiment. I'm going through these experiments now, so let me get those guitars in my hands and then mess around, and maybe I'll make a video about it or something, you know. And I'd love to hear what you think, Doug, about the Hetfield pickups that you have in your guitar. Like, because you say the jury's out, so I'm wondering what you're hearing compared to maybe some passives as well. Corey says, last week's live show was one of your best. Good stories, questions, and conversations. Thank you. Left me with too many comments and questions, but only have room for one. Happy late birthday. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. Oh, I've moved on. Got that birthday behind me. It's in the past now. Tone Talk was great yesterday, says Les. You know, I actually didn't see yesterday. I know it was Dave's 100th show. I was doing other stuff, but unfortunately I missed it. I'll have to watch the replay. Dakota says, have you ever played through a PV5150? I had one and I used it as my main gigging amp, actually. The very first one that came out. And I actually really liked that amp. It was great. I moved from a rack rig to that. I had a bunch of Mesa rack stuff and sold it all, and then got the 5150 with I think I had like a Digitech thing in the loop for delay and reverb or something, and maybe a pedal or two in front. Just had this foot switch for the amp, and that was it. That was my rig. And I did a lot of gigs and like club gigs and both cover gigs and original band gigs and stuff with that amp for a number of years. It's one of those things I have no recollection of what I did with. I don't have a memory of what like, where did that 5150 end up? Because I would really like to have that amp now. It's kind of a sought after metal amp, you know, the first edition. I don't remember where it went. Like probably sometime around 1995 or something. When I think about it, it's like I ended up with a Bogner Ecstasy in 95 or 6. Maybe I must have traded it or something, or sold it and got that amp. Because I was always, you know, want to check out the latest and the greatest. But yeah, I used to use that Block Logo 5150 on a lot of gigs, a lot of cover gigs. I played like around Pasadena and stuff like that back then. And I didn't have the 5150 cabinet. I think I had a regular PV, like with the Sheffield speakers, kind of a la Tom Morello, actually. Yeah, that was my rig for a while. Who else we got here? Christopher Butler in the... Oop, and I just missed your chat. Let me find you. There we go. Les Paul 335 style, 2-volume, 2-tone, 2 humbucker. Are you a 50s wiring, modern with treble bleed? I like the 50s wiring. I think it's fine without the treble bleeds. I had on my Les Paul for a while. This was kind of neat. I had a treble bleed only on the neck pickup, and then I could roll the neck down to like 2, even through a cranked, you know, plexi or something, and it would be basically clean and sparkly, and I could hit the bridge pickup, and it was like channel switching. It was awesome, you know, like Hot for Teacher style. But it was like hyper, you know, like had some sparkle to it and stuff because I had the treble bleed on the neck pickup, so that was neat. But generally speaking, I've got 50s wiring on, you know, like my Urine, obviously, and my 335, and those guitars are all the old school. 335 has the original wiring harness in it, pots and stuff. So I'm fine with that. Greg doesn't struggle to get a good tone out of Fishman. Well, that's just because Greg's like superhuman, isn't he? No, not saying there's anything wrong with pickups. Pickups are great too. They seem to be really good. But he's Greg's such an incredible guitar player. Let's see what else we got here. What else we got? Did I miss any super chats? I may have. Somebody let me know if I did. Here's one. Bruce says, I asked a couple weeks ago about an overdrive for my Dr. Z SRZ, but couldn't find anything that did what I was looking for. I purchased a hot mod. Oh, so is that the double tube thing that you pop in the? That's what you're talking about. I've got one of those here for a video. I'm looking forward to trying it. Actually, I'm going to try it in a Marshall JMP. and that I have access to. Yeah, so that's cool though. Yeah, nothing like going to just a good old tube. You're basically doing a mod to the amp, you know. I think that's what you're talking about. Hot Mod V2 Evo. I guess I should make sure that's what you're talking about. I'm not sure that that's the exact name of it. Hot Mod V2. Yeah, that's it, right? The yeah, I have one of those things here, so I'm gonna give it a go here soon and make a video with it. Yeah, good old tubes. Get your tone from tubes. Pete, have you spent any time with Prs Guitars? A little bit. Yeah, I'm on two. I had a class, what do they call it, Classic 24. It was the one that was an alder body and maple top, maple neck, rosewood board, but the traditional, you know, the 25 scale, and that looked like a traditional PRS tremolo, 2 humbuckers, but it was a little cheaper version because it had an alder body and a maple neck. So I had one of those. It was kind of a cherry sunburst, and I used it for a little while. Kind of, as I remember, like sort of a wide, thin neck. And that was a cool guitar, but it wasn't quite really my thing. I got a McCarty after that in the 90s. That was a great guitar. Really nice. You know, 2 humbuckers, Les Paul scale, 22 frets, 3-way toggle. It's basically a Les Paul with a volume and a tone knob instead of 2 volumes and 2 tones. But I remember that being a really nice guitar and kind of a honey sunburst situation. Iced tea, maybe you would call it. I don't know. Yeah, it was nice. It was cool. Yeah, played it for that. Once again, have no memory of what I did with that guitar or when I traded it. Forget so much shit in my life. It's crazy. Like what happened to that thing? I don't remember. Honestly, don't remember where it ended up. I know the other one I sold to a student of mine. I used to teach guitar a lot in the 90s and stuff. I sold the 25 scale, you know, the custom 24 or whatever they called it. I think that's my memory of what they called that, but that could be wrong too. Best attenuator for the bedroom rock stars. Price not an issue. The power station. Just get a PS100 and be happy. And it's got a loop too, which is great because you can add some post effects to your amps and stuff. And, you know. What else we got here? I think I got all the super chats. I hope I did. Yep. Neckwood 3-piece mahogany. Dean Z. It's probably like where it's 3 pieces glued together. So 3 strips of mahogany all glued together, and that's like the neck. And I think like the middle one maybe goes grain wise in the opposite direction to the other 2 or something. I'm guessing, but you know, when they do that, it's supposed to be good for strength and stability and all that. That would be my guess. Tone Talks here in the house. What's up? I got to watch the replay of your show, your 100th show. Check it out. I'm sorry I missed it. Tactical 6 String says EMG are doing dual tones too. I guess that's like where you do the push pull and you can do 2 different output levels. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't. I learn things here all the time. Here's a fan of EMGs. You can get a real classy Strat sound, but have to watch my dynamics. Yeah, I'm looking forward to giving them a try, you know, at least in one guitar. I think it would be cool to have one guitar with the active pickups in it for variety. But I'm hoping it's quiet, you know. That's the main thing. I just want one quiet guitar. Real quiet. I did miss a super chat, Ben says. Adam, I like the concept of the JHS little black box. I'm thinking about purchasing one. What are your thoughts on this type of device? Well, as usual, I don't know exactly what that is. I'm going to take a look. Little black box pedal. Who knows about this one? Okay, if your amp has a... it's interesting. If your amp has a send and return effects loop, it says, simply connect the input to your send and the output to your return. You can use the little black box to saturate your preamp section and get some crank tube tone at bedroom levels. So it's like a gain boost that goes in the loop and drives the phase inverter, maybe. But the phase inverter, that's interesting. Or is it like actually just a saturate your preamp section? It's going to kick the, it depends where I guess your effects loop comes in your amplifier circuit. But it's obviously some sort of gain box that's meant to just drive whatever tube is coming on the back. It's meant to drive the return into saturation. I can imagine that would work probably well on some amps and maybe not as good on other amps, depending on the design of the amplifier. It would be a thing you'd have to try and see if it sounds good with your amp and how the effects loop is implemented and stuff, because it'd be, there's different different effects loop designs and stuff like that. And I don't know, unless it's got just some sort of internal, like you're adding a drive circuit. Maybe it's got overdrive of its own and it's not actually just kicking the return. But it's interesting. I'd like to try it and see how it sounds. Interesting. Anybody tried that one? Interesting idea. All right, I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat here. It's like a master volume through the effects loop made by JHS. Like a pot in a box. Yeah, it seems like, I'm just wondering, like they're saying you can use it to drive. I mean, you can't saturate your preamp with the volume control in the loop. It's a scam, says Dan. Well, you can drive the hell out of whatever's on the return. I don't know if that's going to sound good though. It allows you to pull down the volume on a loud amp, says Gary. Oh, okay. Is it just a master? Is it return effects loop? Saturate your preamp section. Oh, okay. It's just like a master. I mean, I guess if you had a Marshall, if you had a Marshall 1987X reissue with a effect loop, you could put that in the loop and it would act like a sort of like a JCM 800 style master volume, I guess, where then you could crank the Plexi preamp 110 and then turn down this JHX box. You could do the same thing with a volume pedal in your effect loop, but it's $45, so it's not very expensive. Essentially, yeah, it's just adding a master. If your amp doesn't have a master downstream, makes sense. Okay, I see. It's not adding gain, it's just a passive volume. It's a volume pot, says Eternalism. Got it. That makes sense. I was thinking too much, wasn't I, guys? Is it an overdrive? VPOS. Do I just say your name anywhere close to right every week? You have to tell me at some point. I'm sorry if not. Hey, Pete, I know you've been to Japan many times. I've heard in passing of many Japan exclusive pedals. Yeah, they do have a lot. It's fun. Many manufacturers have put out over the years. Have you tried any? Any advice on places to check gear out? Shibuya has a ton of great music stores, and I kind of like that scene. There's the Ochanomizu scene. I assume you're just talking Tokyo mainly. There's the Ochanomizu, couple blocks of just guitar stores, which is really fun to visit. But I sort of generally find the stores in Shibuya to be a little bit more like full. I don't know. The ones in Ochanomizu are really cool, but they're sort of small and older, and then there's a ton of them. But there's a lot of guitars in like one space, and not a lot of maybe provision for like a room to like. Maybe some of them have, but like it doesn't seem like a place where you could go in and crank up an amp or really try a pedal. And like for example, Amp Station, which reasonably moved, but there's a great historical Amp Station in Shibuya. There's Guitar Station and Amp Station, and all the nice guitars are kind of in Guitar Station, and nice amps are in Amp Station. Then you can go down there and and try like, well, I've got a ton of pedals and a ton of great boutique amps. I mean, you know, Friedman's, and they might have Sir, I think they've got Sir, and you know, Kempers and Axe Effects and everything under the sun, and they've got a separate room in there where you can go in and turn stuff up a little bit and stuff. So it's really cool. Having said all that, they moved recently, but I bet the new store is even better than the one that I was in, you know, for the last time a couple of years ago. So I like the stores in Shibuya. Long story short, Key Music, the Ikibe store, the Ishibashi store is amazing in Shibuya. It's unbelievable. It's on the second. It's a little hard to find. It's on the second floor of this crazy looking spaceship looking building in Shibuya. But it's unbelievable. You'll never see a bigger selection of like custom shop Gibsons, Nags. There's a whole wall of Nags guitars. There's a ton of Sirs, custom shop Fenders, vintage guitars, and then plus all the other sort of, you know, slightly lower end stuff, Japanese Fender guitars. Just amazing selection of guitars in that place. So I like Shibuya. I mean, you could spend a day in Shibuya, just find all the music stores and go walk around and check them out. You'll have a great day of seeing stuff for sure. And the pedals, yes, there's a ton of pedals you'll find over there from, you know, everybody from that you might not see as many of in the States, from Providence and Free the Tone, and what's that, HAO, you know, they made, they've got a bunch of pedals, the Dumbleoid guys, Shin's Music, and then just a ton of others, you know. I'll never forget the first time I went there and I saw all that. Like, oh my God, there's so much stuff here that we don't have. Like, it was mind blowing, you know. Guitars too, like really interesting guitars, like neat guitars from Edwards, you know, like the ESP, that are like Japan exclusive, that are maybe for signature artists that are like well-known guitar players in Japan, but nowhere else. I can remember like a Strat with two P90s. That was some guy's signature guitar, you know, that I didn't know. Famous guitar players in Japan. And so it's just really fun because you can see all these, you know, it's a great place to go. And if you can like set aside even like $1,000 or something like that, or $900, something, okay, you're like, oh, I'm going to buy a guitar over here. Like today, I'm going to find something. You'll find something cool that you can bring home that no one else will have, you know, pretty neat. It's a lot of fun. I can kill days there just guitar shopping. And then some of the vintage stores you got to see. Oh damn it, I'm forgetting the name of. There's Hyper Guitars that's close to Shinjuku. That's an amazing shop to visit. Just because, you know, there's a whole case of gold tops from, you know, 54 to 58. There's a whole case of Black Beauties from the late 60s, like, you know, just custom color Strats, like just amazing vintage stuff. Guitar Traders in Daikanyama is one of my favorite places. And it's actually where I got my old Telly, my 66. So that's another great vintage shop. I love going there. Love it, love it, love it. Amazing. It's not huge, but it's amazing. Yeah. Okay, Adam says, Pete, looking at Strats, what is your opinion on 6-screw trim versus 2-point as far as feel, tuning, stability, ease of setup? You know, the 6 screws are cool, and if it's in the right guitar, like my old Strat is great. It stays in tune great. I feel like with the 2-post ones, with the 6-screw ones, they seem to work better if the bridge is angled up, like a la Jeff Beck or whatever. I had a lot of problems recently trying to get the guitar to stay in tune when I was doing that white and black, you know, 78 style Van Halen guitar with the 6-screw and the bridge flush to the body. It tends to want to move on the screws, you know, with the 6-screw, and it's a very fine adjustment how you got to like tighten the screws down and then loosen the middle ones and then just bring the outside two out. You know, it's kind of crazy. Like, and a good tech can help with that a lot, but it's a difficult thing to set up a 6-screw bridge, long story short, to get it to really stay in tune and work, and where it's not sticking up and down and stuff. So a 2-post is just easier. I love the look of an old bridge. Having said that, like the 6-screw is just cool. Like if it's on a, you know, I don't really like the look of, like, I'd say a 2-color Sunburst Strat with a maple neck and a 2-post bridge. It just looks like, you know, I want that guitar to look like a 54, 57, whatever, you know, like I want it to look like that. But on a more modern guitar, like say my my blue Sir that I love so much that I'm playing a lot these days, or the green one. There's a green one right back there on the couch, you know, the cactus green one. Those are 2-post bridges, and I don't mind 22 frets and the 2 posts on those, and I think they sound good, and they tend to be easier to set up. I'll say that, you know. So yeah, it's just tough, but to set up those 6-through bridge a little bit, but they can work. They can work good. Any recommendations on locking tuners? Love my Nag Steve Stevens, but I can't seem to keep it in tune. Make sure the nut is cut right. That's a really important one. I would look at the nut above everything on a guitar like that that's got a 3 on the side headstock, and how the fan is coming out of the nut. A good tech, once again, can make all the difference. On my black Les Paul Custom, I had issues for a long time that was really difficult to keep the guitar in tune. I took it to a great tech, actually, in Shibuya at another great store called Hoochie's. That tech just rocked that guitar out. I mean, he did a bone nut that he really spent some time on it, I think, and it made all the difference in the world for the tuning. If you use the Big Ben's nut sauce stuff, have you tried that? The lubricant in the nut, and D'Addario also has a similar kind of, you know, so I don't know if it's graphite or what, but you put it in the nut slots. That can alleviate like 80% of the issues. So, but starting with making sure the nut is super dialed in, go to a great tech that's really, you know, highly regarded, and that can really help. Is the Frankie guitar a good guitar? I love it. It's super fun. Yeah, it plays great. It's fun to play, and no reservations about recommending it. I'll say this: it makes me happy to look at it. I walk in the room and, you know, I see it, and it makes me light up. Like, that's a great thing, you know. It stays in tune good. The Floyd. You know, it was a little weird with the way it came set up with the it had the detuner on it, and the detuner would actually bottom out into the body a little bit if you screwed the low E string down too much. The fine tuner, it's kind of hard to explain, but I took the detuner off just because it's a cool thing to have, but it was doing that and it was causing an issue, and with the bridge touching the body, it was just a bit of a problem. I'm sure a tech could maybe figure out how to do it, either through maybe shimming the neck or doing different things to make the bridge sit at a slightly different angle so that it wasn't doing what it was doing, or maybe blocking the trim in the back a little bit, or there's different things you could do. But I just took the detuner off, and if I want to do drop D, I do it old school. So have you ever played, or do you own a guitar with a trans trim like Eddie had? No, but I would love one, just so that I could mess around and try and do those songs like he did, just for fun. You know, locking in the different keys and stuff like that. I'd love an old Steinberger. That's one guitar I would, you know, an old one of the exactly like his, the little guy. That would be something that would be really fun to have. So, yeah. Great tech makes all the difference. That's true. Yeah, having a good repair person that really knows what they're doing to kind of massage your stuff and really dial it in can take a, you know, like even just the nut height can take a guitar that sort of is like, I like this guitar, but it's something about the feel, I don't know, you know, and then they dial in the nut and you're like, oh my God, now it's where I want it to be. Like, and many times nuts are too high for, you know, from the factory. They're just, the slots could be lower. It's a difficult thing, and it's time consuming to get the nut slots just right. So they will err on the side of not buzzing, and, you know, because then you got to start over once you cut the nut too low. So getting it just to the right height is like, it requires patience and a really good tech and time. And then if it's a thing you should get people to look at, you know, especially on like a new Les Paul or something. It can make all the difference in the world in how good the guitar plays and how high the action feels, especially up till about the 7th fret. On the lower frets, it's amazing how when they dial in the nut, it can be just, you know, really great. So Purposeful Porpoise is getting a guitar put together by Kenny at Performance. What do you think of them? Were they around the 80s? You know, I haven't I don't even know where they are now. But I used to go there when it was on Cahuenga. Is it still there? I don't know. And they were around forever, and they were highly regarded. And, that's where like Steve Vai used to go buy parts and stuff, put together some of these guitars that he used in the early days. David Lee Roth and stuff. But yeah, it's I would imagine it's probably still a cool operation, but I can't comment on exactly what's gone on there over the years. I haven't been. The last time I was there was probably 20 years ago. Yeah. Robert's asking about the Waza compared to the power station. So what's your uses? Having the onboard IR with the Waza could save me needing another box for IRs on gigs. Right. And you've got the so you want to use it as a reamp and then also be able to take the direct out with the speaker sim. It is kind of the only box that does that stuff. And I can see where you're going with it. I would just, as I was recommending last week, just from the load perspective, I think you're pretty safe if you keep the reactive load controls to the all the way left position, counterclockwise. And if you do that, I think you're good and safe. And then you've got your IRs in there and stuff like you say, and it's got a good sounding reamp. I liked the reamp in it. I thought it sounded good, and the impulse responses and stuff sounded pretty cool too. That came in it for going direct. So yeah. Have you ever had a guitar get damaged due to playing a gig or outdoors weather? Playing a gig. I mean, my guitars have taken some abuse on the road, and had some breaks and things happen for sure. I wouldn't say weather. I don't think that's ever been a factor, really. I've never had any something get ruined due to rain or something like that. That's never really happened. Although plenty of gigs I've been to where it's God, man, I remember when we were doing that big gig in Japan in 2015. It was raining every day up till the show, and Yoshi didn't want to have a cover on the stage because he wanted to be able to see the stars and stuff, like the sky. But it was really problematic leading up to the gig because of the rain every day. So they had these like kind of makeshift plastic things built over our gear, like things you would see at an outdoor fair or something, where you put or like a farmer's market, like where you put it over and it provides some relief from the rain or the sun, right? And plastic over the pedal boards and stuff, and there would just be water like pooling up, like it was still used to be great because it's like Japan in the summer and it rains like crazy. So anyway, that was pretty wild, but nothing got wrecked. I did have an amp that where the return jack, I did like a bunch of gigs in Japan in 2014, and then when my gear was coming back, it's kind of wild. I had a gig with Don Henley in Hawaii, and we were able to work it out so that the gear would ship to Hawaii, and I would have my rig from Japan in Hawaii for that one-off Don Henley show. And my amp worked fine in Hawaii, I remember, but we're talking about some humid places here, and sea air and salt and all that. When my amp got back to the States, it quit kind of working, and then we tracked it down to the effects loop return on the amp. It would work with the loop not in, but with the loop in, it wouldn't work. And they opened it up and looked, said, this is just like really gotten kind of corroded in here. So I was like, oh, interesting. That must be from the climate, being in Japan and the being in Hawaii and doing these gigs right by the sea and stuff in Hawaii. And that the effect loop return was shorting out somehow, and the jack had become corroded and wasn't passing signal. So that can happen. Was that interesting? That sounded like a really boring story now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Long story short, if you're in Florida or something, and these things can happen to your amps, so get them looked at by a tech occasionally and make sure they're not, getting corroded. What else we got here? All my new guitars go straight to Eric at Lush Guitars. I like Eric a lot. He just moved to a different. He's in where is he now? Close to La Cañada, Flint Ridge. He was at Third Encore in the Valley. This is some LA stuff right here, right, Lauren? But yeah, Eric's great. I've known him for many years. My tech had an old Steinberger on the bench just yesterday. Yeah, I mean, I wonder, working on a Transram, it's got to be a specific kind of thing. You know, there's not that many of them around. So it's still on Cahuenga, says Purposeful. Is it? I got to go by there. Performance guitar. Sorry, I'm skipping around here. I got to go by there and check it out. That'll be a blast from the past. Right where Hollywood becomes the valley. As you start to come around the corner there and turn around, and oh, now we're in Studio City. Vibe's a little different. Yeah. Uh-oh, it's Matt. Hey, I got one of those Pasadena pickups you demoed. Do you want to help me solder it in? You don't want me soldering, my friend. You don't want to see that. If you want the sides of your control cavity burned with the iron, I guess you could get me to do it. And a real cold solder joint that'll probably disconnect itself after a month or two. I leave these things up to the professionals. I can solder, sort of, but I basically suck. I mean, I used to do it on all my guitars, but Marco says, greetings from Brazil. Any chance you could get the Frankie borrowed from Wolfgang so you can make a video? I don't think so. That guitar is probably locked in a vault somewhere where it will stay, I'm sure. The Wilkinson trem on your Thorn Model Sir works perfect. Thank you. I know it's good, right? When that one's set up, it's kick ass. It's yeah, it's pretty much as close to I say it's like 95% to a Floyd Rose as far as the tuning goes. You know, that rhymed. 95% to a Floyd Rose as far as the tuning goes. Sorry, that was awful. Not the coffee, my singing. What's up, Belfast, Northern Ireland? I've never been up there. Dublin is as close as I've made it. I know it's not the same thing. I'll have to get there sometime. I gotta get up there. I'd love to see that place. I did one of those DNA tests recently. You know, where you learn about your potential to have genetic disposition towards cancers and things. And luckily mine came back. It's very boring, actually. 99.7% British and Irish. I was hoping there would be something interesting in there that was outside of the realm of what I know about myself, but there wasn't. It was and it kind of all like I'm from somewhere around London, DNA wise, for the most part, and then it was like 0.3% Danish, Denmark. That's it. I thought, God, there's got to be some other stuff in there, but there wasn't. Anyways, I watched a live Summer Nights video and laughed a little with Eddie's custom cigarette holder on a Steinberger. I haven't seen that, or I mean, I've seen the video, but I never noticed he had a custom cigarette holder. I assume you're talking about from Live Without a Net. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Teammate says Performance put a pickup in his Dobro. I'd like to go there and get a guitar made by Performance. Make me the Steve Vai guitar from, I'm trying to remember what the guitars look like that he had. I know some of the ones that he played on the Eat 'em and Smile tour were Performance. He had the green Strat, and then he had them smack together a couple guitars super fast for the tour, I think, and that's what he used, and it was great. Yeah. What else we got here? Matt, it's true, Matt, right? Sushi in the Valley is as good or better than sushi in Japan. That's why I lived where I lived. I used to live right there in Sushi Row, as you know. Big part of why I moved to that neighborhood. I'm not a complicated guy. Actually, it was an accident. The first time I lived in Studio City, I lived right in between Katsuya and Nozawa, and about equidistant. I could walk to either in about 5 minutes. And man, did I ever eat a lot of sushi back then. I've cut way back, and but you know, it was stellar. But in the valley, yeah, I mean, sushi's just exceptional, really exceptional, and so much of it sort of in one area. So it's great. It's true. If you're in Asanebo, if you're in Studio City ever, if you're in LA, just check out that great little place. Make a reservation. It's very expensive. It's worth it. Plan on spending no booze. Plan on spending $80 a person. With booze, it's going to be $120 a person for sure. And that's like a nice, light, good meal. Not going crazy. But it'll be exceptional. It's incredible. Asanebo. Means to be late in the morning, I think. Okay. What else we got here? What's the first recorded use of the dotted eighth note delay thing? That's a great question. I mean, I can't think of anybody before Edge really doing it, but there might be some other example of it. You know, most people that did delay in the 80s and in the 70s, sorry, when you first started hearing delay, you'd heard slap, right? And you heard more like freak out stuff, like, or either that or like Joe Walsh used the Echoplex a lot on that early James Gang stuff. And then you had Eddie with his one repeat thing, or Jimmy Page with his kind of freak out stuff, you know, but it wasn't really a timed thing. It wasn't this, you know, like rhythmic thing. I don't think Eddie did a little bit of the rhythmic thing when we think about On Fire or in talking about love and stuff. There's a bit of that rhythmic bounce back and stuff, but then he really didn't. Did he ever do that again? I mean, he didn't really do that very much later. Like he almost moved away from, well, Cathedral, I guess that's a great example, but now we're into the 80s and Edge was already around and stuff. Yeah, Cathedral is the most obvious one he did, I guess. But and that was even different, where it was a bit more of a, not really an Echoplex thing. I wonder what delay he used on Cathedral. I actually have no idea. I should have asked, because when I was doing the video for the EVH chorus, I played Cathedral, and I remember Matt Bruck contacting me. I did a version of it and I sent it to him, and he said, it's good. He goes, it's almost a little too dirty. He goes, it's cleaner than that, like on the record. And I was like, yeah, you're right, it is. Okay. And I did it again, and I cleaned up the amp and I changed the settings so that I got it better and stuff. But I was I could have just asked Ed, like, can you tell me how you did this? And I didn't. Because I never did that stuff. I never hit him up and asked him specific things, because I always thought I would be annoying him. But maybe in that case, because I was making a video for his pedal, I should have just said, can you help me with this? Because it would be interesting to know exactly what he used on Cathedral, you know, like amps too. Like I don't think it's the Marshall, you know, it's too clean, unless you just had it turned way down. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was something else. He had other amps around the studio that he would use and stuff. Like he had these little Watkins Dominator looking things around the studio that he liked to use for different things. I remember that. You know, the ones with the split panel fronts and you know, so it's just interesting. But yeah. Okay, what else we got here? What is your mid pickup? I don't understand that. What is your mid? I don't get it. Sorry. I want to answer that, but I don't understand. I love sushi so much. I used to be in a band called Hamachi Kama. That's awesome. All right. What are you guys talking about? Brian May. What about Brian May? We love Brian May. Oh, Brian May did do time delays. Yeah, okay. You're right. Thanks. I was trying to think of somebody, but yeah, absolutely, with his solo and stuff. Wasn't the dotted eighth thing really, but it was more that doom, 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 right? You know, where he did and then he'd climb up. It was like almost like longer. do you call that? The delay he would do. He'd play 2 notes, and then the delay would repeat and go, and then the other side with the long, you know, the 2 echoplexes, right? Didn't he use echoplexes to do that? And the 3 amps. You're right. He was the pioneer, I think. I think you're absolutely right on that live solo that he would do, which was amazing sounding. You get the prize for the day. You set us straight. Gotta keep burping. I'm sorry. I guess it's something I should get looked at. Victor Castro, play the comment more. I know. I have to do that. You're absolutely right. Got a Palmer PDI-09 on the way. The Palmer's good. A lot of the other boxes that have come out since the Palmer was released, which is kind of an industry standard and been out for a long time, take that design and then tweak it with EQ. So it might be something that where you want to add it would be really interesting to have a Palmer with a graphic after it so that you could really fine tune in the curve. The thing that I think you'll probably notice is that it sounds fairly MIDI. There's this strong sort of prevalent mid-range to the sound. And even I think most engineers I know, like I think Tom Abraham uses the Palmers, or used to anyway, and then he'll EQ, you know, to kind of tune it in at the console. I think that's what he would do, like with Alice in Chains, and I've used Palmers live too, but Jimmy was mentioning here in the chat as well. David Gilmour, of course. David did some time delay stuff as well. You're absolutely right. So those would be, the Wall. But the Wall is like later, you know, when I think about it, it's like, I mean, we're right around the cusp of, but he's probably just preceding U2 by a year or something, right? The early U2. Did he do any of that kind of stuff on Dark Side? I don't know. My memory sucks. Somebody's going to come up with the answer to that. But anyways, I'm skipping around a lot here. Sorry. PDI-09. Try it with an EQ after if you find it MIDI and just fine tune it in. You know, like it might even work with something like an MXR 10 band graphic if the level's not too hot going into the MXR. But you could also try a rack mount 31 band or something and tune it in, you know, a little bit. Okay. Right. Run Like Hell. That's a great example. Kevin is saying PCM 70. I think he's saying that was what was used on Cathedral. I guess that could be. I've heard that before. That's certainly what he used live, right? PCM 70. Yeah. In the later rigs, he used PCM 70. But was the PCM 70 out when I don't think the PCM 70 was released when they did Cathedral. Maybe it was. PCM 70. Look and see. 85. Yeah, see, the PCM 70 was mid 80s, and Cathedral was, of course, done in 82, something like that. Right? 82, 83, 82, 81. Yeah. We got a couple super chats here. Light up. Come on. Stop that. There we go. Damn mouse. John says, I know your signature series guitars have treble bleeds. They do. But your more vintage guitars, do you add one or even change it to 50s wiring? My old Telly's straight up stock. Doesn't need it. That's for sure. Old Strats and stuff, I mean, kind of like, they're pretty bright. If it's a 3 single coil guitar, turning down, you might not. I sort of feel like treble bleed is I am of the opinion it's cool on modern guitars, and I love it on my signature guitar, but I wouldn't necessarily do it to a vintage guitar. If I had an old Les Paul, my old 330, I mean, the vintage guitars I have, I think there's one on my Strat, because John did, I've got all the original pots and stuff for my Strat, but there was some funky stuff with it a little bit, and John we took out the old wiring harness. These are the guitar had solder breaks and everything, so I wasn't worried about that. So it's the original pick guard, but there's a Sir pickup in the neck, and then the 2 original single coils in the middle and the bridge. And I believe the pots are all new in the guitar as well. And it's a wiring harness from Sir. And I believe he put the treble bleed on it. So I've got the old pickups in there. But if I ever want to convert it back to the old parts, I have them all. So I can do that. So that's my one vintage guitar I believe has a treble bleed. But my old Telly doesn't have a treble bleed. And my 335 doesn't have a treble bleed. My Yaren, doesn't have a treble bleed. I generally, on a vintage style guitar, I'll just not do that stuff. And it's more on my modern guitars that I do things like solid stainless steel frets and, the treble bleeds and that kind of wiring, stuff like that. And especially if you're mixing like a humbucker in the bridge with single coils, it can be helpful to have the treble bleed on, if you've got a humbucker in the bridge and you want to kind of match it with the singles and I just find on modern sort of guitars that have the single style pickup stuff going on, it can be cool. Oh, thank you. VBAT says you pronounced my name perfectly. Great, thank you. Glad we got that out of the way. After going through many pedals and settings on my Badger 35 for that crystalline clean, the solution was going from 10 to 46 to 9 to 42. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it definitely thins the sound, and will definitely get you into more of a, everything affects everything. So, the pick you're using, the string gauge for sure can change the tone, and, can be a little too, well, that's interesting. LA sound design. Sorry, I'm skipping around again. I just saw the thing about Cathedral. DC30. Yeah, he did have that in the rack for sure. But I'm wondering if the DC30, that's the chorus, right? The original chorus that he then patterned the, oh no, that's the, oh, it's analog echo. Okay, I see, right. It's an analog echo, of course. Sorry, DC30, I forgot. So there's echo in it as well. That makes sense. That could be totally what he used for the whole echo. I thought the DC30 was actually just chorus. I've never tried one of those. I thought it was just their analog chorus, but I see that is probably exactly what he used, and it sounded great, right? And what's the delay time is about? It's 400 milliseconds or 402 milliseconds or something. So that was probably totally had enough delay time on tap to be able to do that. I'll say later on when Ed did Cathedral like live, and he used to do it with the PCM 70, I believe, and had the like when he was just using a wet dry wet rig and stuff and would run the delay post, it never sounded as good to me because it's not in front, like, I mean, the delay bouncing back loud in the front of the amp with the amp compressing it was part of the sound, is what I'm saying. So running it in front of the amp was really cool. So he moved away from that at some point when he played Cathedral. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just out of ease of, but it always sounded quieter to me when he would do it live. It didn't have the punch like the record where it's very, and that's just the nature of putting a delay up front of an amplifier. Even a clean amplifier, it's going to come back louder. It's going to get compressed by the preamp of the amp. So anyways, Cathedral on the Discovery delay, the Sir delay would probably sound amazing, actually. Do I prefer the UA aux or Sir reactive load, which is closer? I'm using them both a lot right now, to be honest. And I love the reactive load. It's probably the most accurate as far as a load box out there. I'm really enjoying the aux these days. I spent some time dialing in some presets, and I'm getting it sounding really, really good. And like, it's what you hear actually on the Sir Discovery demo is the aux, the whole thing, I think. And I used the Alnico 21250 cab, bit of room mixed in and stuff. And it sounds really dimensional because I got the room mics going on and stuff. And so it's just a really nice sound that it's so easy to get, what would take a while to get in a studio miking up. And, having some room mics, you'd need a good room and all that. So it's really cool. So I like them both, to be honest. I do, I've missed some super chats here. So let's see. We've got this one here from Alex. Did EVH end up going to a hotter wind A2 because of the tonal change of installing a Floyd? I think he went to the hot wind. Oh, you mean like a 14K A2? do you find the need for a hotter pickup when using a Floyd because of the thinner tone? I sort of think that that's quite possible. I thought about that when we were doing the video, like, well, maybe when he got to the Floyd and then he was like, let me try some of these other pickups that are drive a little bit harder because now my sound is a little, like, and so maybe by fair warning, it would certainly sound like to me a hotter pickup on that record. And, the stories about the guys seeing a JB that came out of his guitar, or I was also told there was 59s in a lot of those 5150 sort of era Kramers. So he was all over the map, with this stuff, because Diver Down also, there's like the weaker pickup thing, it just, sounds like what they call the broken sound or whatever. So, but by fair warning, I think he was experimenting with hotter pickups by the time he had the Floyd on the guitar full on. And I'm a little fuzzy on Women and Children First. If he had maybe the first iteration of the Floyd on a guitar or two by then, right? For sure, right? By 81, he was screwing with that stuff. And you saw pictures of I believe the yellow and black guitar had a non-fine tuner version on it for a while. And then, so he was already getting into them then. So who knows exactly what he was using on the records right then. There's a lot of gray area. But the original 9K wind, I think that was around by 79, if not 78, in the Frankie. And then, I found a thing I could probably find this. This is great, because I've had a few online sort of back and forth with some people lately about what pickups were in the Destroyer, and a lot of people insist it must be the Super 70, right? Must be the Super 70. Let me see if I can find this photo I took of some text. The Shark. Okay, reading from an interview with him. Just give me 1 second here. Let me find this part. He said in Guitar Player magazine, I played it on this is the Shark guitar. I played it on every song that doesn't have vibrato parts on it. Like, You Really Got Me, he told Guitar Player. I can't remember what pickups were in it when I recorded the album. I was always changing them, but that was before I cut the big chunk out of it. So you had a lot of people insisting it was a Super 70. And right there, he said in this interview, I can't remember what I had in it when I did the record. I was always changing them. So come on now. When we listen to the sound, it sounds like the Super Distortion. I just think it does. Or the Mighty Mite, one of the two. The ceramic loud thing. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Jake says, this ties it all together with the delay time conversation we were having earlier. Bono bought the Memory Man for Edge after hearing Dogs by Pink Floyd, according to YouTube by YouTube book. That's interesting. So there you go. About probably a year preceding, right? Something like that, the early U2. And then Edge got it, and then to definitely put it to some crazy good use. That's interesting. Yeah. I have a Surreactive Load IR in the studio, which I love, but like the idea of the mic Nomo or similar for a quick and dirty solution live. It is a quick and dirty solution. That you can look at the mic Nomo, you can look at the Ace. Both those are good. There's also a whole slew of different ways to do it now using IRs. I mean, the little 2 notes. Torpedo, the one that's the size of a pedal that you can do 200 millisecond IRs in. I mean, that's pretty cool too, right? So there's a whole bunch of things. I don't mind the analog boxes. I much prefer IRs for the authenticity. The Ace is the best one I've tried. The Mike Nomo does a credible job. It's good stuff, but there's just kind of not a comparison when you try impulse response. It's just like, well, that just sounds so dynamic and just exactly like a mic'd up cabinet that it just gets you into another level. So, and we're not really talking about a huge amount of, it's a big difference in sound, and it's not really that much money. When we look at what a boutique amp costs, or a set of new pickups, or, if we're talking about, $99 or $200 or $300 for a speaker, for your speaker sound that goes to the front of house, to me, it's not, it's there's these great options we can get now. So, you know, even a Strymon Iridium, it's a great little amp sim, but you can disable the amp sims in it and just use the IR portion of it. And I believe it does full 500 millisecond IRs actually in the, so you can even get some room mic stuff going on. And they're $3.99, I think. And it's the ultimate backup, right? You've got a little amp sim that is it's a killer backup to have, you know, that if your whole rig goes down, you can plug that thing right into the PA and play a gig. So for $3.99. So those personally to me that's the way to go, you know, the impulse responses. That's just what I think, but yeah. Chet Atkins used time delays and Gilmour definitely pulled off the bounce. I guess one could, yeah, Chet and probably Les Paul too, right? If we get into early use of the cool use of delays, right? Pete is ignoring David Gilmour. I am not ignoring David Gilmour. Not ignoring David Gilmour. You're absolutely right. Certainly by the wall and stuff, but he was doing cool stuff with delays even before that. Parliament had a guitar player that used delay, and so did Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's cool. Some good John Martin in the early 70s did some Echoplex rhythms. Interesting. Pat Thrall was dotted eighths. That's interesting. That's interesting. Pat Travers, damn it. You guys are getting passionate about the use of delays. When I think of early users of delay, the Joe Walsh on that James Gang record, where there was that one tune at the beginning that I'm forgetting the name of, but it's the most obvious use of crazy Echoplex. Or like I'm talking, must have been 1971 or 72 that I can think of. So there, and I said that. So you take your Gilmours and your Pat Thralls, and I'm gonna just one up you with Joe Walsh. Yeah. Roland delay on Cathedral. Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense because you're right. It was in the rig back then, right? So there we go. Can you help out with the Edge's delay on Streets Have No Name? It seems super precise. There's probably so many YouTube videos, YouTube videos of guys demonstrating exactly how to do that sound. But you're absolutely right. It is super precise, and it's mostly about his playing. And that's the thing with the time delay thing that we have to. It's the same thing with Cathedral and with, you know, it's just really, really accurate playing with the delay. And the Edge was really good at that. And that's when people give him shit or say like, oh, he wasn't really that great, or he was just using effects. Like, yeah, you try and play The Streets Have No Name and make it sound like that. It's hard. It's actually really hard. You have to practice. And the fact that they could do it and he could gel with the drummer so well, you know, and groove like that. They created a real mood, a real vibe that was so cool, that hypnotic vibe that with the delay, hypnotic rhythmic vibe that sounded really bigger than four guys playing. And it was so cool, you know, and it's not an easy thing to do that accurately. So yeah. What else? I've seen pics of him practicing backstage, just talking about Eddie Van Halen with Frankie plugged into a blackface Fender. Yeah, I think he had little, like, you know, champs and things that he would warm up through. All kinds of stuff. And even on the last tour, I saw a picture of him with, you know, it looked like they'd gone to the store and bought an amp that day, but it was a little Roland modeling amp, you know. Then he's sitting there, and you can see the box where they've just cracked it out of the box, and it's sitting there, and he's plugged into it. Sent somebody down to the music store to get an amp for him to play through or something, you know, that day, just backstage, you know. Warming up kind of stuff. Pretty interesting. All right. What else have we got here? Make sure I got to all the super chats. I believe I did. Yeah, I got 462 people online. It's the 4th of July. Happy Independence Day, folks. Glad you're all here. I didn't know if anybody'd show up today. I thought you'd be barbecuing or something, but I guess this is pre-barbecue still in most of the United States. you'll be leaving to go do your parties and things soon. I had a nice day yesterday. I went to a fun outdoor gathering, which is, of course, we haven't been doing much of that for a while, so it was nice to see some people. I was very socially awkward, but it was still fun. I saw my old friend Peter Frampton. That was great. Great to see him and, chat for a little bit about guitar and all kinds of stuff. And he had some great stories, as he always does. George Harrison stories and, really interesting. Phil Spector stories. Very interesting. And I saw some other great friends. Lukather was there. Lyle Workman, some terrific guitar players. And I got to hear a little bit of, actually, it was Bob Clearmountain's fourth party, and I got to hear a bit of Dolby Atmos mixes he's been doing. Are you guys hip to that? Like the new sort of surround format that I guess the labels and iTunes and stuff are really getting behind. So he played me some Bonamassa that he just mixed, and it was amazing. It's kind of like traditionally surround sound to me is sort of like, and I've heard Bob's been way into surround for years, and so he'll mix everything and do a surround mix just in case they need it for a 5.1 DVD or that kind of thing. But traditionally, the surround mixes that I've heard from him sound very much like you're at a concert. Everything's still coming at you up front, and then you'll hear reverbs and delays kind of coming from behind, like bouncing off the back of the hall, right? Well, the Atmos thing is much more like you're sort of standing on a circular stage in the middle of the bands with the vocalist right in front of you and the instruments really well placed, but then other instruments are coming at you from behind. So with this Bonamassa song, it was very heavy and cool. There's a bit of a Zeppelin-y thing going on. There's strings. It was full orchestra. And I actually really liked the tune, and it was different for him to me. The strings were kind of doing an almost secular thing at times. Is that a word? Circular, right? Like going in circles. Circular effect. I know. Give me a break. I got a high school education, albeit it's a good quality Canadian high school education. Anyways, you'd hear behind you in your right ear. That was a little dig on Independence Day. Sorry, I'm Canadian too. I got to every now and then. Back here though. Cello, like coming from over here, and then it might zoom around and end up over here at some point, and it was just this kind of like really interesting, like, and there was some sort of powerful a la Zeppelin kind of like punches and breaks and then in the song, and when it would do that, it sounded so heavy and dimensional, like literally like you were standing in the middle of a stage with some people playing behind you and some people playing in front of you, and these it's just really cool. So Dolby Atmos, interesting. It's a thing that I guess if you've got surround, you can listen to it if you've got a system 5.1 system or whatever. But if you don't, in headphones, it's supposed to be, you still kind of get the effect, I guess. So that's interesting. A lot of people listening in earbuds and headphones these days and stuff. So they kind of made it work that way too. I think if you've got a traditional kind of 2-speaker setup, it doesn't do much. Somebody mentioned to me yesterday that also like some of the sounds, home theater kind of, or like with sound bars, maybe you've got a sound bar and a sub or that kind of thing, that it sort of works with that too. But obviously for the full effect, if you've got a, surround system, that'd probably be the best thing. Anyway, it was really cool. He also played me a new version of Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. That was, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this actually, so I better not. But it was a mix that he did, and I shouldn't say exactly what it was, maybe because it's not out. So I won't give any more details than that. But it was really cool. I just realized I could get myself in trouble right now. I'm not going to say it. Anyways, yeah. Arthur says you sent me a picture of Eddie with a mystery guitar. That's interesting. How did you send it? The many ways that people can send things over the internet these days. Oh, I see. A mystery guitar. Yeah, that is an interesting picture. I'm sitting here looking at it. You guys can't see it, but I can see it. Looks like it's got a Floyd. It's a mahogany, so it's kind of a interesting dark colored body. Interesting. Black headstock. Yeah, what is that guitar? Looks very 1984 period. Yeah, because you can see the Kramer there beside him. Now, I wonder what that guitar is. You guys want to see it? Let's see if I can show you this picture of this guitar. I actually know how to do that. Brand, private chat, share, video file. I want to share a video file. I want to share a photo. Okay, I'm just going to take a picture of it and show you because it's interesting. I'll have to get some Mark from Tone Talk, some lessons in how to share photos and things using StreamYard, because I still don't have all that together. But there you go. It looks like it's a kind of a, see, it's like a raw wood body, and the headstock is black. Sorry, it's not great resolution if I'm doing it this way, but it's an interesting looking guitar for sure. Cool. All right. Possibly a Kramer prototype, says Arthur. Yeah, maybe. Could be interesting. There are a number of Atmos theaters on the Fox lot in Century City. Interesting. All right. What's a good mic for acoustic live? That's a tough one because, you know, miking acoustic is always a difficult thing live without getting feedback in monitors and things. But there's a couple different ways you can go. You want to generally shoot for something that's got a really tight pattern, hypercardioid. Sometimes I think like even like an SM7 or something can be good for that, because it's just good rejection and they're durable. You know, they're not too sensitive. They sound really good. I would probably go with something like an SM7, like a dynamic, or I would look for something that's just a condenser, probably a small diaphragm condenser that's designed for live use with like some sort of tight hypercardioid pattern. That's what I would look for. And it's going to give you the best rejection and, you know, hopefully least amount of feedback, but it's always a struggle. I would go for a good pickup over just about any mic always live, even though a mic can sound really good, but it's always I've tried to mess with it before, and it's always just an issue trying to get it loud enough through the monitors without it feeding back and giving you the kind of, if you're used to playing a piezo or any of those types of pickups through a monitor, it has a much more present in your face loud sound before feedback, you know. So James says, thanks for everything you do for the community. Any tips on which frequencies to cut or accentuate to turn your guitar tone from one that sounds great when you're noodling on your own to one that sounds good in the mix? Well, the number one thing that people tend to do when they're playing alone is they've got a nice, warm, full sound. And sometimes in a band setting, that can equate to muddy and you get lost. So that's just one thing to remember, that a lot of the great guitar sounds isolated were quite bright and not that much low end, you know? So I would just say that you don't want a harsh sound, but you know, if you're finding yourself lost in the mix, many times that can be the issue, you know, that where you want to just try and make sure you're cutting through. I don't know how else to describe it, but you know, that's, I mean, I think originally, like when you had the use of treble boosters come in, you know, in the 60s, with some great guitar sounds, you know, and top boost boxes and all that, and, you know, jangly, twangy, and got some great guitar tones, you know, that worked well with bass and the other instruments in the mix. Gradually, you know, as tones maybe got darker, or folks more worry about like what sounds good when they're sitting home alone playing, you know, it's like, it's just a good thing to be aware of, that, you know, having some ample chime and a little bit of top end on tap is a good thing when you're trying to find your slot in the band. So which frequencies specifically? If you're trying to cut through with a solo without sounding harsh, I find pushing just a little bit at 2K can sometimes make your guitar sound louder without, you know, like literally I do that in the mix a lot, like on a solo. I'm talking a dB or dB and a half. You can literally have your guitar and it's like, it's just getting lost in the rhythm guitars a little bit. You can boost just a bit of 2K, pretty wide to bandwidth, excuse me, wise. And And just that little bit of 2K just helps the guitar just come forward a little bit. You don't want to do too much or it'll start to sound, ouch, but like just the right amount really helps it to poke through. And then making sure, just generally speaking with instruments, that there's not enough, or sorry, there's not too much low mids, like 190 through 300 on a lot of stuff, like kind of can build up and just be really creating this murk. You can also use a filter to basically cut everything below. Electric guitars, it's like 80 to 100 hertz, somewhere in there. You can just shelve all the low end below that. You don't need it. And same thing for a lot of the other instruments as well. Obviously, maybe not, bass guitar and bass drum, but you want to leave room for those. And then like a lot of the other stuff, you can start to just, vocals for sure. Just find that point where you can get rid of all that. It just helps to clean up your mix. And then make sure that there's not a big buildup of low end low mids on any particular instrument that probably shouldn't have that, proximity effect of microphones or whatever, being close to sources or things that build up, and you can kind of tend to clean up your mix, and then it helps things sit forward, so it's helpful. Hope you have an awesome 4th of July. Thank you. Hope you do too. Have a great 4th. And it's about 1 o'clock. So when did I start? 11:30. I'll go for another little while, and then I'll let you guys go and do your 4th stuff, and I will too. Another 20, 30 minutes, something like that. Yeah. What else we got here? On a stream-like situation, my bassy mic caused me to be drowned out because I'm normalizing the volume across all frequencies. More bass equals less treble equals inaudible. Yeah, and that's kind of what happens. Is it's like, that it's amazing how cleaning up a guitar sound in the low end, like sometimes 190 or 250 or whatever, you can do a little dip down around there, and it sort of sounds like you added top, like even though you didn't. You can do that, and then maybe turn it up a little bit, and it just sounds cleaner and better without, I always come back to the same thing, which I remember getting an AC30 style amp and moving from, I had that Ecstasy with a closed back 212 in the 90s, and I was playing in a big band that had keys and another guitar player and stuff. And then I got this Top Hat King Royale, which was an AC30 with an open back, so it spread around the stage a little more and stuff. And I always remember the bass player saying, wow, this is great. It's like you're louder, but you're not as loud as he was used to, because he used to stand beside me. So he's like, you're out of my way, but I can hear you better. Now I can hear myself more defined. I can hear you better, because that's the AC30 was great. Those types of amps, they were really terrific for that, because they were all mids, and top. There was no lows. But if you got a bass player with a great tone, you're getting out of their way and you're in your own zone, and that's Queen basically, or you too. Great sounds, with and what's similar about Queen and U2? They're both bass guitar drums. They sounded great, So, anyways, yes. What else we got here? There is an IR of a Taylor 314 flying around. That's the one I used too. When I tried adding IRs to acoustic, acoustic piezo, and it was like, wow, this sounds great. Like, it sounds so much more like a mic'd up guitar. And I, the last gig I ever got to do with Chris Cornell, I was doing that on my Takamine. I had an IR, that same, whoever made those Taylor 314 IRs, I was using the Sheps one in a Helix, and I had to use a little compression, a little bit of EQ to just in the Helix, and that was my acoustic guitar sound on that gig, and it sounded really good. It's like, and I've never really done it again since, but I should do it again because it's cool, those Taylor IRs. But I imagine there's more out there now. I'm speaking specifically about impulse responses that would be tailored to, tailored to, to making a piezo style pickups sound more like a mic'd up guitar. This is really the Fishman Aura system, right? It's called the Aura, I think. That's, I mean, it's essentially that, I think. Similar, you know. But, you know, I'm talking about maybe some third-party ones. I think Sigma, they have some acoustic guitar hours, but it's still that free one that everybody talks about, the one that you mentioned, the 314 one. Those were great. I've heard that Yaron guitars are really, really good, but do they have Gibson trademarks illegally? He doesn't really do that. You know, like one-off builders that you may have built, there's a couple, you know, but generally speaking, Gil is about his own designs these days, and he doesn't put Gibson on his guitars. Not even on the one that I have here. It says Gil Yaron on it. So, you know, he's not going to go and put Gibson on the headstock and sell those guitars. He knows instantly he's going to get in trouble, you know. Another person asking about the Yaron, Orion Quest. Can you talk about your Yaron? Terrific guitar. Gil's a character. He's a very opinionated and very knowledgeable builder that really knows his stuff. He's a riot, you know. But he really knows what he's doing, and it's a great. It leaves me not really feeling like I'm missing out on not having a 59 Les Paul. I'll say that. So that's about as much of an endorsement as I can give, you know, honestly. I mean, they're really brilliant guitars. So, you know, like I say, he's a character, but he's really into, you know, research and authenticity, especially on those designs. And then on his new design, he's also a forward thinker. I mean, he designed his air gap pickups and different things to try and do new things. And, you know, originally when he does these old sort of, you know, reproductions of things or whatever, his goal is to make them exactly the way they used to without any improvements. You say, well, why did you use a nylon nut? Well, not because it's the best. It's because that's what they did. So that's what I did. You know, he wants it to be dead nuts accurate. So when he does those things, but he doesn't really do a hell of a lot of that anymore. I think mainly now he does more his designs. So have a discovery delay on order, recommendations for an expression pedal. I used a Moog one, Moog, and it worked great. It was just fine. I really like Boss ones. Boss expression pedals to me are, they just have the nicest sweep, be it the smaller size one or the old traditional, the great big FV, you know, whatever they're called, a low impedance version of that pedal. That'll work great too. They have this really predictable sweep and they feel good. You know, there's no substitute for everybody wants smaller these days, but there's something about those great big expression pedals that just feel the positive feel under your foot. You can really tell where you're at and stuff. So it depends what's important to you. All that said, I use on my board a small Boss expression pedal. I don't remember the model number, but you'll be able to find it. It's you know, see that silver one there in the middle? And you can see that's a Dunlop mini wah beside it. So you get an idea of how big it is with the mini Phase 90 there and stuff as well. And it works great. So that's low impedance volume pedal that goes in my loop and is before my post effects like delay and reverb and stuff. So I can do long trailing delays and stuff and roll the volume off. That kind of thing. Somebody said AC30s are the worst represented in the modeling community. That's probably true, but they're maybe one of the most difficult amps to model correctly, I think. You know, even doing Kemper profiles, I found it difficult to capture my old AC15. I remember that. It was weird. It was like I could do really good Kemper profiles of other amps, and then I tried to do that amp that came out sounding really distorted and weird, like very different. Like, whoa, that's not right. Something got messed up. And then I tried it again, and I got the same result. It was like, why can't I seem to do these cathode bias AC30 style amps? I know good Kemper profiles out there of AC30s, like Michael Britt's are really good. But anyways, I have an MXR 10 band EQ, says Vincent. I think you once said if done properly, it's great in the loop. How and where would you use it in a wet setup? You could use it on the send from like your load box out send on the way to the effects. You know, I found it, especially if you're using a resistive load of any sort, to be really helpful to fine tune the sound coming out of the load box to sound better, basically. And you know, maybe a little bit more like you're using a reactive load. So, but yeah, just on the send, like for a while, there's these 5-minute lessons that are on my channel, and you can hear me there using it. I think I was using the Faustine Phantom. I did a setup for a minute at home where I had like the SL68 loaded down into the Faustine, and then I had the line out of the Faustine feeding the MXR 10 band, and then I came out of the MXR 10 band and I went into a Matrix power amp. I think I was just messing around at home with like reamping, and it sounded great. You know, fine tuning the EQ in a little bit with the MXR. So that's how I did it with that. Yep. T-Top says he finds himself adding a little 800 hertz when EQing rock guitar. I think a lot of folks cut there, but to me it sounds real ballsy. It can, like 800, you know, 800, 900. It depends. Of course, it depends what amp you're using. You know, if you've got a mid-scooped amp, that can be helpful. No two sounds are the same, so it's all dependent on your guitar and your amp and everything. But I've also heard like Tone Talk with Bo Hill. He was mentioning that he used to cut around 1K, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like on all the, you know, Rat stuff and everything that he would do a gentle cut around 1K, and it can tend to make the guitar sit in the mix a little more, kind of the opposite. Instead of pushing it forward, you're taking out a bit of what can sometimes be a harsh mid-range frequency. And but once again, we're talking about, it's depending on what amps, you know, we're talking about distorted Marshalls here, I guess, specifically with that. So it just depends. You know, this is the thing, is the tones are all over the map. You know, if you've got a deluxe reverb mic'd up with a you know, ribbon mic compared to a Marshall cabinet, you know, and a Marshall that's cooking with greenbacks or even vintage 30s, that changes. So it's like, it's totally different sounds. So just depends, you know. Did I miss any of you guys in the super chat? I don't think I did. I hope not. I apologize if I did. Oh, there's one. Derek, sorry, Derek. Bogner Blue Mini, still your favorite amp and a pedal from modelers. From modelers. I see what you mean, like kind of pedals that mimic amps. It's a really good one. A favorite, I mean, I've got a lot of favorites that do that sort of sound. That you're talking about, almost Marshall in a box. The Engine from Drybell is great. The Origin, you know, what are they called? Oh, right, the one that they got in trouble, Revival Drive, the Hot Rod or Revival Drive Mini, or those are great. The Friedman small box is great for that. The Sir Riot is great for that, for sort of a modern distortion sound. So it just depends on what you want to do. If it's plexi in a box, I do think the Blue Bogner is really good at that, for sure. But there's others, you know, lots of other good ones out there. So it's hard to go wrong. There's so many good, you know, versions of that kind of lightly broken up plexi sound these days in pedals. It's almost too many. So yeah. What's that divided by 13, says Fernando. This particular divided by 13 is a RSA 31. So it's kind of AC30. These two are basically like AC30s. They sound quite similar, really. A little bit different. This one sounds a little more like modern or something. This one's a little more straight up old school AC30 with its cut control and only a well, I guess there's some modern features. Like this has a mid control, and so does this amp. That wasn't something that generally put on, you know, old AC30s didn't have mid range. So I tend to find it sounds best cranked on both of these. But this one's it's a little more limited in because it doesn't have the other channel, the normal channel. This has an EF80. Well, I guess it's not limited. It's just got another kind of channel. It's got the EF86 style. It's not an EF86. It's a 5781 or 5879 or whatever the hell the pentode tube is that divided by 13 use, but it's similar to the EF86 style pentode channel. in an AC-15, you know. So that's interesting. But that's the amp that I used as my main clean amp for quite a while. When I was with Jewel on tour, and then when I was with Chris Cornell the next year, that amp was my main clean amp. For a while with Jewel, I had an FTR 37 too, and I was using that. And then I moved to the RSA. Once again, it's a little bit more AC30. I kind of like the AC30 thing for clean, you know. It's a sound I love. I love the Fender thing too. It's great. But there's something about the way an AC30 sound just sits in a mix and cuts that I love, you know. It's just a great sound to me. Maybe it's just for my, like I was saying, coming back to my DNA, my British heritage. Vincent's got to go. Thanks, Vincent, for being here as always. See you, man. Best brown sound pedal. It's tough. I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there as well, but the Pinnacles are great. The Pinnacle Deluxe from Wampler, it's really good. That sound in a pedal is tough. The original Plexitone was awesome too. As well as the little yellow one. It's great. You just have to run it into the right amp. But when you run it into the right amp, like one that's not got a bright cap, it sounds deadly, you know, for that sound. Really good. But nothing quite does the, you know, I made that video about voltage sag and all that, and what's so cool about, you know, old Marshalls when you crank them up. So, would a PS100 work well as a mono power amp used with a Koch? Is that Koch or Koch? Super lead preamp pedal. 16 ohm 412 cab, looking to replace a power amp. It works great as a power amp. I heard it the other day actually with a Soldano X88 that was slightly modded, plugged into into the power station as the power station PS100. It sounded great as a power amp for that. I was like, this is a really good sound actually. Dave Friedman does a mod on X88s where he changes the middle channel to make it quite usable. And it's a sound that traditionally would be that crunch channel or middle channel on an X88, be kind of like a JCM 800 or something. It's sort of just, you know, a little bloated and sort of just sits there. He mods it. It sounds really killer. And then you get your sort of SLO style lead, much more sort of brown Marshall crunch. And then the sort of just, you know, fairly neutral sort of clean. Yeah. And anyways, it sounded terrific for a power amp with that. So I guess I've heard it and it works good. I've used it for a power amp in a couple videos where I'll just come out of like a, can't remember what right now, but I've used it, you know, coming line out of things and going right into line in on the power station. Always sounds good. Yeah. AC30 is so versatile. Does it sound like the Beatles? Does it sound like Queen? Yeah, I mean, depending on the pedals you hit it with, and of course, whether you're running it, they're not all the same, of course. If you're running into an old school one into the normal channel, it's a totally different thing than running into the you know, a top boost or the, you know, there's the different versions of them that just changes to the circuit and stuff, whether they're brighter or, you know, the top boost is more like a Marshall style, as I understand, sort of front end with the cathode follower or whatever. Is that right, Dave Friedman? Help me. I'm sending out to the cosmos and hoping he comes back and gives me the knowledge, but it's not happening. I think that's the deal, though. It's more like when you're getting into the top boost style AC30, it's a little more like a Marshall front end, and then it'll that top boost not being there is more like typically early Vox, and you've either got basically the normal channel of an AC30 is just it's like a gain stage into the power amp. I don't think there's anything else going on. And then the versions that came right after that had some sort of tone control and added some top end to the sound, but that's not the top boost. And then when you get into the top boost circuit, that's more like a Marshall front end is the way I understand it. So you got those sort of 3 different designs, plus they had bass version. Kind of crazy. But yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Peter Urban says he can't wait for his Discovery Delay to arrive. It's cool. You're going to have fun. You're gonna have fun. New Plexi prices just went up again, another $100. Let's talk about that for just a second. Price increases. This is a thing that is going to happen. John says gear prices are out of hand at the moment. It's been described to me by the folks, the builders, that what you're seeing is kind of like the toilet paper rush that happened at the beginning of the pandemic, where everybody went and bought toilet paper. So things like chips and certain parts in the electronic world, people are freaking out and they're buying tons of them. So you've got auto manufacturers that need certain chips or parts for things. And, you know, you can go look one day at an electronics supply place and they'll have like tons of this one part, and you go to the next day and they're sold out and they say they won't have them for another 6 months. So you're getting this panic buying of certain parts, plus just supply chain disruptions through COVID and issues like that. All adds up into this perfect storm of big increases in price, sometimes not available parts. So, you know, a chip, let's say, like, you know, that they'll use for something, that chip could be $5 one day and you come back 2 days later and it's limited in supply and now it's $25, that kind of thing. Which, when you add that much cost to a part that goes in an amp, it increases exponentially like 3 times by the end user, because they have to add that much into the, you know, the cost of the amplifier to make any kind of profit. So that's what you're seeing, and you're seeing it across the board, you know, with pretty much anything electronics. And, you know, if you know anything about, you know, I was reading about all kinds of the problems that they're having with the housing market is pretty interesting, and how it, like, you can't sell a home here, for example, before getting a certification that it's finished, which means that when you make a new home here, you have to have appliances in it. So all the, you know, appliances have electronics in them, right? So you got to have a fridge and a stove and everything that, and so the house can be completely finished, except it doesn't have those things, and they can't actually bring it to market and sell it because you can't get a fridge for another 6 months because of these electronic supply disruptions and stuff. And then just wood and stuff, like price of wood went up like crazy, and it's hitting every, like, manufacturing and you know, all kinds of different industries. And it's this kind of like snowball effect of problems, right? Then that affects the housing market, because now you don't have as many new homes for sale, so existing homes shoot way up and people are panic buying those too. And it's just this crazy kind of perfect storm of issues. So this is why you're seeing the price increases. The companies actually just can't stay in business without because they're having to, essentially, they can't get the stuff they need to build their stuff, and when they can get it, they're having to pay way more for it, and that's what's happening. So, and you're going to see it with everybody. So people went all Carl Sagan for a second there. Oh, that's it. I'm honored. He's my hero. So let's see, which Bad Cat amp equals AC30? Whatever's closest. I mean, whatever. Do they make an amp that's still basically a DC30? Because that was a really cool amp that was similar, had its own thing going on. But yeah. Any experience with the Nano or Fat Cab by Blue Guitar? I'm sorry, I don't. I also love the Matchless Cleans. Yes, Matchless, and once again they became Bad Cat, right? But Matchless Cleans, beautiful. DC30s, I can remember, and what's the SC30? Was that what it was called? The single channel one? Very cool. Have you ever messed with a Bogner Fish? Not for a long time, but back in the day, I think I played through one, maybe at Making Music in North Hollywood. The brown channel, always cool, right? I'm surprised you don't have a Morgan AC30. Yeah, you know, the only Morgans I ever heard were Josh Smith's. I know Joe. I mean, I've met him, you know, 2 times, I think. I don't know him really well, but I've met him a couple times. But yeah, it's just, you know, how many amps, you know, can you go through? Because it's like, even with, I mean, Top Hat, I had a good relationship with Brian back in the day, and I knew him. So when this one came up for sale recently, I was like, I got to get that, because I'd always loved my old Top Hat King Royale. So now I've got one again, and the Divided By, you know, so I've already got a couple. and they sort of scratch my AC30 itch for now, although I would still love an old one, but they're just very, very, very expensive. So, yeah. Any live gigs upcoming? Not till January of next year that I know of. I'm sure something else will come up before then, but that's the soonest that I know of. I know your buddy Brad Franquist is an old lover of those Divided by 13. You know, Divided by 13 became the kind of the hip amp of the day for sure, like around 2002 or 3. That's when I remember everybody started using them. And you started seeing them pop up in the hands of all the, you know, LA sidemen / studio dudes. And they became very popular. You know, they were just simple and they looked really great. You know, they were simple, good sounding amps. Fred was smart about the way he he would always he made the amps like the club you wanted to get into, but you had to stand in line to get into. It was like he would let the people in, I think, that were the you know, like the whatever, the Lyle Workmans and the Joel Shearers, and then certainly like the players that were really well known, of Billy Gibbons or different people. You know, he would get amps into the hands of people that he knew if they were seen with the amp, it would help his thing. And then if you wanted to get one, there was a waiting list for most folks, you know, and that's just how he did it, you know. But I have to say it worked. I mean, it seemed like the club that because he definitely got them into the hands of a lot of, and it's not like he was giving them away either. You know, I bought every Divided by 13, but what he would do is make them for you and get you one, and then kind of hook you because they did sound really good. And then he'd be like, you know, then you'd buy it from him. He'd go, well, I can't send this back. It sounds great, you know. So it was honest, you know, very honest. It wasn't like he was giving away amps like endorsement. And there was something about it where it seemed very, yeah, they were just like hip and beautiful. You know, his design was, I loved his, right? I mean, they were instantly recognizable with this thing and the Divided by 13, and they looked cool on stage with the cabinet. There was something really cool looking and simple and clean about the look that really, you know, it's just, I want one of those. I've seen all these great players with one. They look great, and you know, it was smart. So, yeah, Victoria amps are great, good stuff. That's true. I remember Victoria around the same time. They were one of the, you know, pioneer kind of boutique amp. Victoria Double Deluxe. That amp still haunts me. I remember playing one. It was a double powered Tweed Deluxe. It sounded amazing. Really great. If you only had a Synergy amp, which 3 modules would you choose for maximum versatility? That's a great question. I would say for maximum versatility, something. So it's tough to pick. This is the CVI module that's in here, and it sounds great with its real hyper sparkly black face clean sound. Was a big surprise in there for me. Although shouldn't be a surprise when I think about some of Steve Vai's clean sounds. So it's really terrific. And then the lead channel is very unique and fun to play through. You know, Steve needs a great lead voice that he didn't want it to be fatiguing, and just he wanted it to sound great. And to me, that is maybe the thing about Marshalls. They can sound, when they sound great and it sounds typically Marshall, it can also be a little bit abrasive maybe after playing through it for a long period of time. So I think that's what he was really going for, was that smoother, when we think about the legacy amps and stuff, you know. And so it's got a great thing. The Friedman BEBB, that's basically his BE channel in one, and then the Buxom Betty in the other. So right there, you've got a real versatile module with a great Fendery clean and then a modded Marshall kind of voice. So that'd be another good one to pick if you can only have 3. Now the other ones that I really like so far, I like the Fryette ones are cool. The Savage from Engel, great modern distorted module. It sounds really different to me than the others, and so I really enjoyed it. But I really like also the Powerball and the Deliverance, cool. You know, the from Fryette. So for high gain, I think my favorites were probably the high gain modern, the Savage, and maybe the Deliverance. And then beyond that, maybe one of those Morgans, you know. for an AC30 style front end. It's pretty much straight up AC30, I think. So much of the AC30 sound, though, to me is, of course, you got to have the integrated, the power amp and stuff like that. So it's not all about the front end, but it can get you kind of there, I guess. Yeah. Arthur says, are you going to NAMM 2022? Definitely. If it's on, I'll be there. I'm ready to go. But, chaotic. We'll see, it's going to be interesting with manufacturers, how a lot of people sold a lot of gear in 2020. A lot of folks were buying gear. So it's like, I know folks that I know that, from SIR to other companies that had a very, very big year. And so at that point you say to yourself, well, why are we going to these trade shows? I enjoy it and they're really fun and all that. But a lot of them, I remember like a known manufacturer recently saying like, all right, in 2019, I think it was, or 2018, saying, here we go, getting ready for the colossal waste of time, energy, and resources that is NAMM. And, I think a lot of them, it's really expensive, those booths, and it's really expensive to go and, put up your people in a hotel. And if you sell gear anyway, I mean, the whole goal is to go there and get your dealers to order stuff, right? Beyond the chutzpah, it really is. That's what you're going there to do. And if you can do that without leaving your home base, then so we'll see how busy it is and how many people, I don't know, I always enjoy going, but I just don't know how much sense it makes in them. It's a little bit like the pandemic stuff where, like folks working from home and moving out of, big urban centers and maybe going out where it's less expensive to live and realizing that you can do everything that you need to do, or a lot of things that you need to do anyway, remotely. And does it make sense to do these things that we've gotten used to doing? And I think NAMM falls into that a little bit. Arthur says NAMM is just a big party and reunion for artists. That's kind of true. But then we think, in many ways, I think that's true, and it's a bit of a show off, like even for the manufacturers, to go there. And yeah, you get a lot of free promo out of it. People taking pictures of your guitars, posting them on social media and all that stuff. And, being in your booth, and there's a lot of promo that comes out of it or whatever, I guess. But the bottom line is people buying things. And if people buy things anyway, if you're getting enough orders, if you're making more than you can make, if you're behind, 6 months and you're making as much stuff as you possibly can anyway, what the hell's the point? It's like, really, so it'll be interesting to see. I hope it keeps going, I really do, it just seems to me like it's a great show and everything, but God, it's a lot of money for them. When you see what they got to pay for those booths, I mean, you wouldn't believe it if some of those bigger booths, it's like, it's $50,000 to $100,000, I think, for these companies to outlay just to have that space. It's crazy. And then you think about designing a booth and getting everything there. And I mean, they're spending, some of these companies must spend like $250,000 going to NAMM, for a few days but I guess, I don't know. It's crazy. I'm probably off. I'm probably like some of them probably spend, $500,000, like a big companies like, in the past, Ibanez or Marshall, the ones with the huge booths, it's probably more than, but nice haircut, Pete. Hey, thanks. I feel so much better. God, I want to have long hair, but it doesn't work. I mean, it's fine, whatever. I just like it better at this point, having short hair. What do I think of 15-inch speakers for regular guitar? Still haunted by playing Lyle Workman's 63 Vibroverb it just was the Stevie Ray Vaughan sound to me, with an old Strat. God, what a sound. So I'd love to have one of those, actually. The Fender Custom Shop reissue of that amp, I'd be fine with one of those. The Cesar Diaz, mods in it and stuff with the 15. It was a great sound, that amp. But other than that, can't really think of any. Peavey had that one for a while, the Blues, the Delta Blues or something. They had a 15 tweed thing. I can't think of too many other guitar amps with 15s. Yeah. Wizard amps. Sorry, I've moved in the chat, but I just saw somebody ask about Wizards. I used Wizards, the first record deal I got, first record I ever made, we used some Wizards a lot on that record. They were the ARD heads. One was a 50 and one was an 80, I think. They were like a 4-hole Marshall, basically. And they were killer. Yeah. Oh, I missed a super chat. Sorry about that, John. Thanks, Ben. What would I do without you? Thanks for being here, Ben. And happy late Canada Day to you, my friend. Best backup amp solution for live. Either of those are great, man. I mean, the HX Stomp's got effects, so they're not too far off in price. And the HX Stomp does give you all the effects and stuff, but the Strymon sounds great. I probably actually prefer the Marshall sound in the HX Stomp. So if I could, I really like the Strymon. I like the simplicity of we're talking about the Iridium here, right? I really like the simplicity of it. Is very cool. Another one to throw in the mix is the little amplifier box. Can't remember the exact name of it, but it's a little 2-button jobby that's yay big, and I think they're $299, and you can do 2 amp models, and then it's got a boost in it, so you could have basically 4 sounds, like 2 different, a clean and a dirty, and then you could boost either sound. So you could have a Fender and a Marshall or whatever, and it's a great little thing for a little less dough. So check it out, because I did a video of it, the small amplifier box modeler thing. Very cool. So but I would say, if effects are important to you, it's kind of a no-brainer. You got to go HX Stomp, because it's got the delays and reverbs and phasers, blah, 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 everything else. GitCon still a thing in the UK. It was actually in Germany. It was held both times at the Warwick factory and close to the Czech border, actually. I hope they do it again. I really enjoyed that event. I'd love to go back. I like it's a beautiful area around there. I can remember, I know that's not the main reason why I was there, but I went for some great walks, like just, beautiful. Like it looks like Narnia around there or something. It's gorgeous. So, nice place to visit. And it was a really nice event. Love the hotel we stayed at too. The hotel we stayed at was it's kind of a resort, and the thing there is like saltwater pools where you can go and float. Kind of supposed to be good for you, So you can get out there in the pool and float around, and water jets and all that. And it's like, there's a lot of like senior citizens like hanging out. It's just me and all the seniors. And I guess I'm getting there now too. So hey, there you go. Maybe that's what I like about it. But these are the kinds of things I enjoy doing now. It used to be party, rock and roll. Now I like to go float around in the salt water. No, but seriously, it was really cool. It's funny you asked me about these things. This is what I'm taking away from it, right? It's not like jamming with Phil X or all that cool stuff. It was floating around with all the senior citizens. Oh my God! But no, that was great too, and the playing and getting to see all my friends. Great. It was just funny because I would see Phil at the first one, then I saw him at the second one, then I saw him at the Mannheim, Germany guitar thing that they do there as well, which is also really fun. It's like, why do we always hang out in Germany? We both live in the States, but really, really fun. So, yeah. NAMM is pretty special to me, says L. Scott Music. Lauren, yeah, it's special to me too, man. I see all my friends there. I mean, I'm speaking purely from an economic perspective. It's fun. It's exhausting, but it's fun. I still really enjoy it. I love going. I just wonder if it'll be as popular, moving forward. So we'll see. Never thought of NAMM that way. You're absolutely right about the expense. Yeah, it's just a huge expense for the manufacturer. So I'm just talking about, of course, we always have fun and it's great to go see people and stuff, but the expense and the trouble it's a whole nother level going there as a manufacturer. When you see them, they're getting ready 6 months in advance, you building booths and things, I see it at the Surf Factory. You know, they're literally like in the front part of the factory. They're building the displays and stuff like that. You've got to put, you know, that's like people like that work for you that are there doing that stuff that maybe could be building guitars instead. But no, they're getting ready for NAMM, like building all this stuff so that we can all go and you know, walk around and have fun, and look and take some pictures on our iPhones and put them up. You know, it's like it's a crazy amount of preparation and stuff, and so it's just, does it make sense, you know, for them? So tech events are at least as bad. 6 figures for a small booth. Is that right? Really? Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. Like the CES show and stuff. Yeah. It's more like 500K for the big boys. I can imagine that, like those big booths, you know, the Marshalls and the Ibanez's and the Tama drums and stuff, you know. John saying, Dave was saying 65K just for the booth space. Yeah, I think something like that. And then you consider what you spend on travel and building, you know, the space costs that, but then you need to build that. Like, think about the boutique booth. You know, they build all that shit. Like you know, it's like rooms they make. And what does that cost, you know? And then to get it all there and like build it all, and it's crazy, you know? So anyways, it's got to be like 40 or 50 grand to build all that stuff, right? At least, you know, just to have the, you know, all the, I don't know. Anyways, yeah. Arthur says, oh yeah, Namthrax. People used to make fun of me for having bottles of hand sanitizer. They don't anymore, right? Yeah, well, that'll be the true test when trade shows come back. Let's see what happens to all the variants after that. Yeah, everybody used to get sick at NAMM for sure, you know. Crazy. Oh, well, I guess I better go soon, guys. It's 1:41. I went longer. I'll go for another 5 minutes here, and then I'm going to split. But, yeah. I'd rather manufacturers just hang with Jakey Lee in a hotel room. You mean like Dave did? The best tone talk ever. Yeah. I only went to NAMM once, but it was really fun, says T-Mitz, and met Seymour Duncan. Yeah, it's cool to meet these people, and to, you know, it's you feel like you've arrived. Oh, here's all my heroes, you know. It's pretty cool. Definitely. William says, going to Vegas for the weed industry version of NAMM. That's going to be a crazy show. And the money to be made is definitely probably more than the music business, right? Definitely, probably. Can't say that. It's definitely more in the music business. That is the Wild West and the new frontier. Are you going to play with the Classic Rock Show? Yeah, I totally want to do it again. So we'll be back hopefully soon. What were your top 5 EVH pickups from your videos? Yeah, DeMarzu Distortion was up there, the Mighty Might. I really like the 9K variants of the A2 9K variants, you know, the Pasadena White, the 78, the Rewind Electric, the what else? The VH2 from Bare Knuckle. That was a really nice sounding pickup too, and kind of the only one I was really into that had an A5 magnet in the shootout. I always like Wade's pickup, the what's it called, the Second Degree Black Belt, but for whatever reason, for that tone in particular, is all I'm saying, that Van Halen tone, I really liked the softer A2 sound, you know. And I've got that pickup in a couple of my guitars, and I really like that Second Degree Black Belt. So, but anyways, I learned a lot doing it, and I really I just really want to get into that A2 9K thing. So more on that later. But let's see. Peter Evans is up there, says, great 4th show. Thanks, man. Have a good rest of your day. Pedals this week. So yeah, I'll close out here by saying show you this guy. Just unplug it so I can show you better. This is coming this week. This is a really interesting pedal from my friends at RJM Overture. It's an overdrive, and it basically is a digital controlled, it's got MIDI in it, but it's all analog circuit with various overdrive circuits in there. And I guess this was the pet project kind of for a number of years from the fella, RJM fella, Ron. He's been working on this for quite a while, and maybe it's not well known enough because it is pretty cool and could knock a couple of pedals off your board. If you've got a clean boost, a tube screamer, a clon, an amp style overdrive, this kind of does all that in one box, and you can store, I think, 120 memory locations or something like that. On the unit itself, you can recall 8 without MIDI or anything like that. 8 different drives, which is more than you'd probably ever need. But you can store, I think, 120 presets or something. There's also a pre-boost circuit in there to add some gain. So anyway, really cool overdrive. It doesn't do fuzz. It doesn't do treble boost. It doesn't do hard distortion, hard clipped kind of distortion. It's purely kind of overdrives and clean boosts, but it does a lot, and it's great for those sounds. So video for this coming this week. I've got a ton of other stuff to do, like that hot mod plugin Delio, as well as I've got a video for Guitar World in the can, a review of a Cort acoustic guitar that's kind of a it's not really inexpensive, but it's around $800, I think, and it's a very, very nice guitar for $800, I must say, with a torfied, Sitka spruce top, and it played great. It sounded really good plugged in. So video for that coming as soon as they tell me they want me to put it out. Overloud. That's the company, right? Plugins. THU is I think the plugin. I've got to get to that this week. Just I haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm going to get on that. Get that done. A bunch of other pedals. A sackless pedal. This is things I'm pulling off the top of my head. Too much. Like I'm way backed up. So lots of videos for fun gear and stuff like that coming for sure. Which mic preamps do you prefer, API or Neve? Kind of API if I can only have one, but Neve's great too. An electric guitar, I love API. For many other things, acoustic guitar, vocals, or if you want a fatter sound in general, the Neves are really cool, but they're a little fatter and slower, and the APIs are just fast and punchy, and I like that on electric guitar. Yeah. How loud is that new X amp? Are you talking about the little practice guy? Not that loud. I mean, loud enough for kind of like bedroom, or home volume practice. Did you ever start using the Waza headphones at home? I use them sometimes. Yeah, I got them at home. They're nice. The little, the wireless jack for the guitar and stuff. It's a cool way to just, if you want to sit and jam for 20 minutes, just throw those things on, and it's fun, and they're great for on the road, backstage and stuff like that too. Yeah. It's funny how my heroes have changed from guys like Friedman and John Suhr and even Pete from regular guitar players. I see what you're saying. Well, the funny thing about the internet is that, by the way, once again, Peter, thanks for doing the super chat. Appreciate it. I do, for the coffee fund. Need to get some new beans, so always running out. Thank you, man. Have a great 4th. The funny thing about this stuff is that I've found that people don't really, and I'm like this, I don't really respond to if I admire somebody because I've seen them on the internet. Let's take a Rick Beato, for example. I feel the same way when I see them in person as I would if they were a person I'd seen on stage at a concert or in a guitar magazine. It's like, oh wow, I love what you do, and it's like you don't have this there's however you come across people and get jazzed by what they do. If it's John Suhr building guitars or like a Rick Beato or different people, your response when you see them in person is exactly the same. So it doesn't really matter. It's all about your emotional response to things. So with me, I feel like the thing that I try and do is, and I've talked about this before, so I won't bore you with it, but just in a nutshell, I use YouTube as a music delivery service to write new little songs, and then I dress it up as pedal demos, So that's the thing, is I'm trying to give folks music all the time. New music, new little, even if it's a minute and a half of something new to listen to. And I don't feel like that's any different than actually releasing it on some label and putting it out as a single on iTunes. What's the difference? It's still a song. So, I think that however you reach people with your music, it's like I brought it up, about folks like Mateus Assato. He used Instagram, starting with little 15-second clips of his guitar playing, and folks go gaga for him. Well, he's never put out a record, traditional release, right? Does it matter? I don't think it really matters. I mean, if you can get out there via whatever you can reach people with your music, and that allows you to gain enough sort of popularity and notoriety to then go and do things like book gigs or, a tour, or maybe join a band because they know about you. Like, we want that guy in our band, or gain the, Mateus, has, a fan in John Mayer who talks about him, or people like that, and then you get elevated to this level that it doesn't really matter how you got there. And it's not more valid, I don't think, necessarily to, maybe it sort of solidifies your thing or whatever to have a commercial release of, a collection of songs. But it's just like, it doesn't really matter how you reach people. If you reach people, you reach people, and they're going to have an emotional response, good or bad, or whatever you do. And that makes an impression on them. And then you go from there. So I think that's the thing, is that, you can get so far on your own using the tools you have available to you basically for free these days, via YouTube or Instagram or whatever. And if you go about it in an interesting way, amazing things can happen, so yeah, that's that. Have you ever tried a Celestion Foldback 15-inch? I have not. It's not a speaker I have tried. And somebody else is asking that same question. Interesting. Celestion 15 fullback greenback. I've never tried that speaker. Nope. I don't even have a 15-inch cabinet. I don't have an amp I could put it in. I think that's the thing, is there's not a lot of them out there, right? Like, you'd need a specific cabinet for that, or you'd have to try it in a Vibroverb or one of those PV amps, or one of the few that were for a 15, So what else? I should go. Letting us nerd out every Sunday. Thanks, Pete Thorn, Preston Smith. Thank you. Hey, I love being here. It's awesome. I'll split and get on with my 4th, I guess. Going to go try and see some fireworks a little bit later and all that, and just enjoy the rest of the day, and then on to work as of tomorrow. Might do a little bit more work before I get at it. Nah, I'm going to call it quits for today. I'm going to go back home, get ready to go have some fun. Sounds like the right thing to do, right? So you guys have a great rest of your 4th, or if you're not in the States, have a great rest of your 4th anyway, because it's still the 4th, no matter where you are in the world. Peace out, everybody. Thanks, Ben Coombs, and have a terrific week. See y'all soon.